I've got to admit some more people who are waiting.
Okay.
Do I have, oh yes, I do. Let me unmute Kit. Kit, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Hey.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, Kit.
You look super awesome.
Like your outfit?
What I've imagined my entire life.
I wanted to look as awesome as I knew you would, so I put, you can't see, but I put purple in my hair.
I see it. I totally see it.
Right? I was like, okay. I watched Kit's video on Twitter, and I was like, I'm gonna have to do something. So I have a streak of purple in my hair.
It looks amazing.
Yes, that's what I was going for.
Truly.
Is Arianne here yet?
I don't see Arianne. Arianne, if you're here, take yourself off mute. No, I'm going through the guests. I don't see Arianne yet.
I don't see her yet either. She'll be on soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Arianne has to get all her kids out of the room and lock the door.
Yeah, we just have a dog to worry about, so.
Yeah.
Us too, yeah.
It's a whole process getting ready for Zoom meetings when you have kids running around.
I'm sure.
It involves a lot of threats or a lot of Nintendo. It's like, nobody come in here. Nobody bang on the door. Don't put the dog out and let her bark outside my door. So it's exciting.
I love it.
I don't see her. She hasn't said anything. Let's see. We're close. We're close. For everyone who has just come in, we have the chat box. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, you should be able to pop out the chat box. Yeah, some of you are already talking in it. So, oh, hi, yes. Kelly says I Skyped with his class on Rad, and I did. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah. Hello, Adam. Hello, Kat. Hello from L'Oreal. So the chat box is how we're going to be doing Q&A later on in this. So if everyone wants to figure out how to type on it, in the next 2 minutes, you will be ready to ask questions. Still not seeing Arianne.
Should I pop over on the Twitter DM?
I'm doing that right now.
Okay, cool. Exciting. Yeah, I was worried I was going to be like, I don't know, stuck in like a, overflowing toilet emergency right now. So there's a million places she could be, so.
It's true. I've seen so many like PSAs in the last week for things not to flush down your toilet, and I'm just like, who would have known that like the apocalypse would be about what not to flush down your toilet? That would be like the main thing everyone's worried about.
I know.
I guess not the main thing, but like a big part of the conversation.
I can't tell if plumbers like are thrilled about it or just, they're just way in over their heads right now.
I'm like, this must be a big problem. All right, we are filling up. It's so nice to see everyone. Yay. We're still waiting on Arianne. Hopefully she will be here soon, and then we can kind of, oh, there she is. Right on time.
Oh, yeah?
Awesome.
She's in here. Arianne, I just saw you pop up. Unmute yourself.
There we go. Hi guys, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Can you hear me? Good.
Awesome.
All right, so we have Amanda, Kerelyn, love your outfit, Kit.
And then, so everyone who's not Arianne, Amanda, well, anyone who's, make sure you guys mute yourselves and maybe take yourself off video
Yeah, so we're going to get started. So if you are not one of the authors debuting or me, please take yourself off video and just be hearing audio and mute yourself. That way we don't have too much craziness. Admitting a few more people.
Oh,
Okay. More people are coming in, but I'm going to get started. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope you are at your house without anyone else around except your family, right? And I would just want to start by, I'm just going to reiterate this one more time because we have lots of people coming in right now. Please turn off your camera and mute yourself. If we are going to have Q&A later on with questions from the audience, there is a chat box. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, a bunch of icons pop up. You can just click on chat and it pops up and everyone can say hi. And I see you all, many of you are already chatting in there, so that's good. So everyone, welcome to the party, yay! I hope some of you have made yourself cake or muffins or something delicious. I, right after breakfast, ate the rest of the pan of 7 layers high, which wasn't probably the best choice, but I don't care. So my name is Amanda Rawson Hill, and I'm the author of The 3 Rules of Everyday Magic, which came out about 1.5 years ago, and an upcoming picture book called You'll Find Me that comes out in September. I'm also the co-founder of the Middle Grade at Heart newsletter, which is a book club newsletter. And every month we highlight a new middle grade book, and we give you all the tools that you need to do a book club with it, or use it in your classroom or your homeschool or just with your kids. So we have, sorry, I'm letting people in. We have an author interview, discussion questions, a recipe that goes along with the book, extension activities so you can take it farther. We have a coloring page printable that's made every month by the award-winning Remy Lai, author of Pie in the Sky. And that's kind of mostly what we have. And then we do book recs and giveaways, and it's really fun. So after this, we're going to send out another email with newsletter links again, and you guys can sign up for it. It's really great to have right now. And we have tons of back issues for really great books. We focus on diverse voices, diverse formats, and diverse genres and categories. So it's really great. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to each of these authors, and they're going to introduce themselves and their books, and then we will go from there. So I'm going to hand it off, just because she's next to my picture on my computer screen. I'm going to hand it off to Arianne first.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. So my name is Arianne. My book is My Life as a Potato. And I'm not sure how long this intro is supposed to be. Just a couple things about myself, I guess. The biggest thing I can think of to describe myself is I have 3 children. They are 3, 2, and 7 months. So
wow.
Pretty much all my time. That's like my life right now, besides writing. It's just taking care of my kids. I'm from Arizona, but I live in California right now. And this is the first book I ever finished, but I am in the middle of my 3rd right now. So.
Awesome. You want to tell us a bit what it's about?
Oh, yeah, of course. So My Life as a Potato is about a kid named Ben. I don't know if you can see, there's like little eyes right in there. That's Ben. And he recently moved from California to Idaho. And he gets in trouble kind of trying to be cool and pull this cool stunt in the cafeteria. He accidentally injures the Spud mascot, and as a punishment, he has to become the Spud mascot, which is really embarrassing for him because he's starting to get noticed by the popular kids, and the Spud mascot isn't really cool. So he starts living this double life as a secret potato mascot, and he learns who his friends are, and learns about, how it's important to be honest and be who you are, and be kind to people no matter what social group they belong in.
Nice. So obviously not super realistic, since being a potato mascot would obviously be considered awesome by everyone, right?
Exactly. Well, he kind of turns it cool in the end. Like at first it's not very cool, but he, you know, he works really hard to be the coolest potato mascot ever.
Sounds super fun. I'm gonna hand over to Kit now.
Hey, everybody. I'm Kit Rosewater, and my debut book, The Derby Daredevils, just came out on Tuesday, March 24th. I forget days anymore. This is the first book in an illustrated middle grade series through Abrams. And actually, well, since it's like show and tell time, I also have the second book, this is an arc, which is coming out in September 15th of this year, 2020. Let's see. A couple things about myself. The Derby Daredevils, definitely not the first book I finished. Maybe the third or fourth book that I finished, but I've done so many like rewrites and drafts of earlier books, it feels like the 50th book. But I love this project so much. So basically, this is a series about a junior roller derby team, and the series has rotating protagonists. So book one, the kind of subtitle is KENZIE Kickstarts a Team, and it's all about KENZIE. Kenzilla is her derby name, and her best friend Shelly, whose derby name is Shelly Baum. And basically, when a junior roller derby league opens up in Austin, Texas, they really want to join together, but they realize that if they try out each on their own, they could get placed on completely different teams. The only way for the dynamic duo to stick together is if they try out with a fully formed team of their own. The problem is they don't know anybody else who's interested in roller derby. So that's like the little premise of book one.
Ooh, sounds so fun. Thank you, Kit. And now on to Carolyn.
Hey everybody, I'm Carolyn Smith. I'm author of MULROX and the Malcognitos, and I currently live in Seattle, Washington, but I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've lived all up and down the West Coast. I mostly get to write during the mornings and the weekends, but during the day, I'm a software engineer at a startup in Seattle.
Nice.
And my book is MULROX and the Malcognitos. It's a middle grade fantasy adventure novel about a misfit ogre named MULROX, and he desperately wants to be the world's greatest poet, but unfortunately for him, he hates everything that he writes, and he ends up tearing it up and erasing it and throwing it away. But then the worst thing, yes, totally.
Very relatable.
Yes, there's certain parallels between the character and myself. But then like the worst thing that he can imagine happens, which is his terrible ideas suddenly come to life, and they're called malcognitos, and they're these cute little pesky creatures that float around, and they're rude and obnoxious and annoying, but the worst thing about them is that they need his help. So he has to go on a quest to save his terrible ideas with his pet toad and his oddball neighbor who he hates. So like in many ways, it's kind of a standard fantasy adventure novel, but it's also about MULROX dealing with his perfectionism and fear of judgment. And as the adventure goes on, his internal struggles start to manifest themselves in the world, and he has to ultimately learn how to conquer his fears and embrace his imperfections. So that's MULROX.
Nice. A perfectionist, codependent ogre. I feel like I might be MULROX. So the first question that I'd like to ask all of you, and authors get this question all the time, but I think everyone wants to know it. So let's start off by asking each of you, what was the inspiration behind your books, and sort of what was the path that they took to get here? We have a few different paths, because as Arianne said, that was her first finished book, and as Kit said, it feels like her 50th with all the rewrites. So I'd like to hear the inspiration and sort of the path it took to get to publishing. And let's just keep going in this order. We'll start with Arianne again.
Okay, so I knew I really wanted to write a book. I was a 7th grade English teacher, and I really liked my students, and they just had a ton of funny things that they did. So I knew I wanted to write a book kind of like for their age group. And I had been thinking of ideas. One day I was at a volleyball game, and there was a cougar mascot dancing down on the court. And he's kind of famous, but he's anonymous. No one knows who he is. So I thought, like, wouldn't that be funny if there were a book about a kid who is secretly the school mascot? And my husband said, well, I know that in Idaho they have some potato mascots. And I thought that sounded pretty funny. So I was immediately hooked on the idea. My students were obsessed with potatoes. They would always like write potato references in their writing journals and assignments. So I knew that they would get a kick out of it. And I wrote the book in 2 months, and I started querying, and I got so many rejections, like just rejection after rejection started coming in. So I had to keep editing, keep revising. I eventually ended up subbing to Pitch Wars, and my mentor helped me revise. I got 2 requests during Pitch Wars. I kept submitting. I think in the end I got like 150 rejections overall. But finally, after a billion rejections and a billion revisions, I found an agent, and it sold pretty quickly because I had done so much work. So that was my path to publication. It was exciting but depressing for a long time.
That's basically publishing in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Okay, Kit, let's hear your story.
Let's see. So for the inspiration behind the Derby Daredevils, it's actually pretty similar to Arianne in that while living in Austin, Texas, I didn't say this earlier, but I grew up and now live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, but while I wrote the first book of the Derby Daredevils, I was living in Austin, Texas, while my husband was going to graduate school, and we were at a roller derby bout. There's roller derby in Albuquerque, but I didn't know about that till we came back. Roller derby is super, super big in Austin, Texas. If anyone's seen Whip It, it takes place in Austin, Texas. It's that roller derby movie that Drew Barrymore directed and Ellen Page starred in. And they have 2 different leagues. They have a banked track league that's it's basically what's featured in Whip It, where people can go really, really fast. And then they also have a flat track league, which is, you mostly find flat track leagues. And I was at a roller derby bout, and I saw this group of girls standing off to the side. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, that just looks like such a fun and like really like diverse group. And I just wanted to write about them on the track. And I actually was smack in the middle of another book I was having so many problems with revising. And it was a darker book. And so I was like, I kind of want to write something fun. And my agent was super, super supportive of that. And the funny thing was that like my journey to publishing has been a really, really long one and slow and hard. And I've gone through multiple agents. I've done so many rewrites of books. But the weird thing about the Derby Daredevils was that just came lightning fast. I wrote the first draft in 2 weeks, but it was a chapter book at that time, so it was a lot shorter. And basically from the time that I got the idea to write the book, from the time that we sold the book, was 6 months, which was insane, especially because my first book, that process was 7 years. And then like got set aside. So there's no rules, there's no timeline. And yeah, I've been really, really fortunate with this series, but part of me thinks that the reason why we've had such a smooth ride is because I had to stumble over so many previous books and like learn and grow as a writer.
Sorry, I was letting people in. I really love Kit's story. It's very inspirational. Carolyn, let's hear yours.
Okay. So the idea behind MULROX was like a couple different things that kind of came together, but I kind of like Kit had spent 7 years writing a previous novel that was a literary fiction novel, so not at all in the same genre. And gone through many, many drafts on it, and basically was just like, okay, this is not where I want it to be, and kind of gave up on that. But I kept writing and doing stuff, and I decided that like I wanted to go back to writing, or I wanted to try my hand at writing middle grade, because those were the books that like made me so excited as a kid. And it was part of the things that I was like not that great at. I felt as a writer was like the plot and making things like interesting and fun. So I really like wanted to lean hard into that. So that was kind of like the direction that I went. And then actually kind of weird, but my partner had a blackboard, and when we moved, we didn't have space for it anymore. We wrapped it in a tarp and put it on our deck outside. And we left it out there and didn't think about it much. And then we went back to check on it at some point and opened it up, and it had molded, which like to me was really weird and also kind of cool. And I just kept thinking about that and these like chalk dust and like all these old ideas that had been erased, and then had suddenly grown out and been like this mold and come to life. So I wanted to take that idea and kind of play with that, and kind of capture I like to write about things that I struggle with. So all my books kind of try to deal with that. So my internal journey, you know, I struggle a lot with like judging myself really harshly, and like with spending 7 years on that book that never really got to where it was. I wanted to kind of put that mental journey into the book because I thought it would be relatable for a lot of people. So that's kind of the inspiration behind MULROX. And, you know, my journey has been really more like an internal one, just kind of working. And I didn't even want to publish anything up until a little while ago, because I just really wanted to focus in on the craft, and making sure I could write the best book possible.
Awesome. I love that we have just very different journeys here, so that's fun. So if you are just coming in or you haven't used the chat box now, we're going to open up to audience Q&A, and we're going to do that through the chat box. So if you have, who are your parents, Kit?
Oh, it's either Jim Waters or Simeon Waters.
Oh, Simeon. Okay, yeah, I didn't recognize the name, so I wasn't letting them in. I will let them in.
No. Sorry, my parents. I think my parents were rude, but
there are two people in the waiting room. One's named Harry, one's named Tim. If they belong to someone, I'll let them in, but if not,
Are they Harry Smith? That's my dad.
I will let Harry in.
I probably know Tim too. Is there a
So Tim's probably good, but remember, if he starts to pull in some crap, we're gonna kick Tim out.
Amanda, you're awesome. Are you gonna pick the questions and ask them to us, or should we
just
look at the chat feed?
So from Stace, she says, my 10-year-old is starting to write a story about a magic world. Do you guys recommend any kind of videos to help them visualize a story? Or I guess you could kind of talk a little bit about how do you take what's in your head and put it on the paper, maybe some world building tips.
Let's see. One thing I like to do is just write down every idea I have. That's like a trick that I've learned. And it's partly to do with MULROX stuff too, right? Like sometimes I get worried that like it'll be a bad idea, so I won't write it down and I'll just kind of sit there thinking. But like the best thing I've learned to do is to just write down everything I can think of and like just try to come up with 10 ideas really fast, and they can be as bad as anything, right? And then you can come back and look at them and pick which one that you like the best. For world building, I think that like takes time, and one of the things I think that I've learned is I've been leaning really hard into like learning craft and studying stuff from like film writers and things like that. And one of the mistakes I made early on was leaning too hard into world building up front before I knew what the story was about, because really like the world needs to support your story. So the things that you highlight really should have ties back into the theme of your book or the plot. So I'd start with the story that you want to tell, the journey that the character is going to go on, and then you can start building a world around that fits with that journey particularly. That's my advice.
Yeah, I like that. And I think a lot of times we associate world building just with fantasy, but it's actually an important part of your contemporary novels too. Totally. So I'd love to get, we'll start with Kit and then we'll go to Arianne, your guys' tips on world building, even in a contemporary setting.
Yeah, You know, whenever I'm thinking about specifically world building with a story, I actually really like that the question included like this thing about like videos to watch, because I specifically like to immerse myself into like whatever world, like in this case, it was just downtown Austin, that's going to be the setting. And so I think that for me, whenever I'm specifically like world building for contemporary, the most important thing to me is whose lens are we using to see the world around us, because I think that that really is what I'm using for world building when it's contemporary. And I don't want to see it through my adult lens. I want to see it through like I want to see it through a younger lens. But even more specifically, I remember when I was a kid, but middle grade age, that's right when I was starting to feel like the close world around me, like my neighborhood, my school, the places where I hung out, like I just remember kind of feeling like queen of that land, you know? And so you feel really cool when you start to get old enough to kind of, you know, have like realm over your, or like just that, like, you know, your surroundings so well that they become like, you know, kind of part of your identity. And so ownership. Yeah, you do have an ownership of just like the places that you like to hang out and the places that you like to go, because like you're a big kid now. And so I like to listen to music that I think my characters would like to be listening to, and that helps me kind of construct how they see the world around them. I have not written a lot of stories set in places I haven't been. I like to do my own exploring as I'm world building for my settings. So that's really important to me. But yeah, the most important thing I think is that sometimes I'm not all about portraying things accurately as they are, as the way I see them in a contemporary landscape. It's more so portraying them to show what they can reveal about how the characters see that setting. And so like the girls in the Derby Daredevils, they very much feel like they are like the queens of downtown Austin. And so I wanted them to feel that specifically, rather than kind of like describe it as like this scary big city place.
Nice. Arianne, before you answer your question, does anyone, will anyone claim Alexei Lazariev from the waiting room?
He's one of my friends as well.
Okay, and also Miriam Markin?
Arkin, yeah, that's one of my friends too.
Okay. Okay, so Arianne, I want to change up the question just a little bit for you because of where Kit took us, and it goes along with another question. Do you find it difficult to get into the mindset of someone so much younger than you when you write these books, and how do you do it?
Actually, I kind of feel like I'm still a teenager sometimes. So I don't know. So I spend a lot of time around teenagers. I work with the teenagers in my church, and I was a teacher, but obviously I'm not a teacher anymore. But I don't know. For some reason, my memories of junior high are still pretty vivid. And I actually, when I was writing my book, was able to go back and read a lot of my journal entries from junior high. I was a huge journal writer. So that helped me kind of get into the headspace of what's important and to these kids and what, you know, their priorities are.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, it was fun.
Do you have any more tips for getting into the headspace of a young person? And then I have a question specifically for Carolyn.
I think probably for me, the biggest tip that I would say is don't underestimate that audience at all. Don't underestimate that age category as characters or as readers. I was like Arianne, I was a middle school teacher for 5 years, and those kids are so smart, so clever, so witty, so freaking hilarious. That anytime you write something and you think, well, I don't find this funny, but maybe kids will, they won't. They're like way above our level. So my biggest tip is that like you're aiming high to please that audience, and just don't underestimate them. To me, they're like superheroes. You know, like a huge motif in book one is that Kenzie, you know, really imagines herself like as like this star roller derby player, and so do I. So did I the whole time while I was writing about them. And whenever I write about kids, I want to specifically write about like these are people who like are heroes and innovators and artists. So yeah, that's probably my biggest takeaway from writing for middle grade.
I love that. Thank you. Carolyn, we have a question that says your main character writes poetry. They want to know if you write poetry.
I am a terrible poet. I, as a middle schooler, was very into writing very dramatic, very terrible poetry that I, you know, had lots of journals full of, but I would not say that I'm a poet. I appreciate poetry. I feel like it's really unique and like a puzzle that, you know, you can unlock and like beautiful. And I occasionally will write things, but I wouldn't pretend to be a good poet in any way. There's a lot of bad poetry in the book, which is more like kind of speaking to my love of things like Alice in Wonderland, the little like nonsensical rhymes in there. So there's a lot of stuff like akin to that in there, but yeah, not great poetry. Hopefully there's a lot of great poets here in the chat that can write some better things.
Start typing in your poetry to the chat.
Yeah.
So just a really quick flash answers from everyone. They want to know where you fall on the spectrum from pantser to plotters. So we'll start with Carolyn, then go to Arianne, and then to Kit.
Okay. So I used to be purely a pantser, and I was like, oh, these stupid plotters, like, what are they doing? They can't write anything organic at all. And then I wrote a book that I could not revise because it was so all over the place. And I have like completely shot over to the other end where I am like crazy with diagrams and outlines and getting like lower and lower in. And that's helped a lot with like writing faster and I think writing better plots. So now I'm very much a plotter.
I'm so impressed. Arianne.
When I first started, I was more of a pantser as well. I kind of had a vague outline and idea of what was going to happen, but I didn't have any craft background behind it. I wasn't thinking in terms of like, okay, like, you know, the character needs to discover something about themselves. I wasn't following the plot formula that you see a lot, or different plot formulas. I was just kind of guessing based on what I'd seen in movies and stuff. And it was a lot harder to revise. So for my second book, I read the book Save the Cat, writes a novel, which I absolutely loved. And it was allowing me to kind of get deeper into what my characters really wanted and needed. And it allowed me to help their inner desires direct the plot. And I think that the result was I was able to write a lot more quickly, and I was able to revise a lot less for my second book. So I recommend that one. It's one of my favorite craft books, Save the Cat. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say.
That's fine. It's flash answers. Kit.
There you go.
I might be the only weirdo that went kind of the other way. My personality, I'm such a plotter. And I think I plotted so much that when I got a story idea, I was like paralyzed. I couldn't actually write any prose until I knew everything that was going to happen. But I took it way too far, and I'd be like, I want this book to be 55,000 words. And then like, I'd break it up by I mean, it was terrible where I'd be like, all right, this chapter can be 1,200 words, go. And so I've actually had to like loosen the constraints a little bit with some of my projects to feel the flow. But in general, I am a huge Save the Cat writes a novel user as well. I do really, really love plotting because I don't actually think it has to dictate every single thing that happens in your book. So it won't take away all the fun surprises that you still get from writing a first draft or revising. But I think, Jessica Brody, who wrote the adaptation of Save the Cat into Save the Cat writes a novel, she talks about this is not so much being like a cliche formula, more so as like a language of storytelling. And I really, really like that, because I think that when you think about all those things ahead of time, they really help you with the writing, but they don't necessarily tell you exactly what to write. So you can still have lots of fun surprises in the process.
I love that. So I'm not doing the questions in any order, so just keep writing them, guys. From Kelly Farnsworth, during your editing phase, was there any main part that you were asked to remove that was difficult for you, or that you had to fight to keep in? Any editing, revising stories like that?
Me first? Are we going in the same order every time? Okay, in the beginning, my character totally had different desires and wants. So I first started out writing this book, and one of the first chapters was Ben getting into a fight with axe spray in the classroom, and the classroom filled up with axe spray, and it was based off something that really happened when I was teaching in 7th grade. So I was so attached to this scene because it really happened in real life, and it was so funny. But as I discovered more about Ben, I realized that he wasn't a troublemaker, and he wasn't a smart aleck so much as he was kind of this kind of insecure sweet kid. So I had to cut a lot of the scenes where he was just pulling these like crazy stunts like that. And it was hard, but in the end it made the story a lot more believable, I think, his motives for trying to hide himself and the things that he did.
Yeah.
And then also, of course, there were like little jokes that I had to fight to keep in because my editors, there were a couple where my editor was like, I'm not sure this is landing. And I'm like, I think it's funny, I'm keeping it.
Good.
So if you ever come across a joke that is totally not funny, that's probably something my editor wanted out and I liked.
I'll be like, oh, this one is Arianne. She kept this.
Yes.
Hey, Carolyn, how about you?
So I had, like, kind of goes back to the world building thing. I had a lot more creatures and the world was a lot more complicated, and I had to keep editing that down and down and down to make it simple and more relatable. I think part of the struggle with fantasy is to make it something that people can relate to. So you're not so far out that nothing makes sense anymore, and to make the magic system simple enough that you're not constantly breaking all the rules. So that was a big struggle, and there were lots of characters and creatures and scenes that ended up being thrown out. This book went through like 16 drafts or something insane, and like by drafts I don't mean futzing around with words, I mean like rewriting the whole thing from scratch. So yeah.
Really quick, someone wants to know, will MULROX be a series?
It was written as a standalone. I do have some ideas for some side adventures, partly with some of the earlier characters, kind of like a prequel, or potentially some stuff in the future. But right now it's just a standalone. We'll see.
Okay. Kit, how about you?
You know, I actually think I was really, really fortunate with the Derby Daredevils in that the first draft began as a chapter book. It was really, really hard to write a chapter book that's about half the length of it's about half the length of what it is now, and that would have already been a really short middle grade. So because of that, the revising process was really just more about kind of expanding and adding scenes, and that was really fun. Like Arianne, there's one joke. I'm not even going to say which joke. It made it really far. Well, I mean, it's in there now, but it wasn't pointed out until my copy editor was just like, and she didn't say this joke is landing. It was just clear that she didn't get it was a joke because she was just like, wait, why would they do this? And I was like, because it's funny. And I'm pretty good. I love getting notes and feedback and criticism, and I'm not actually that stubborn with things. But in that one, I was like, no, it's funny. I know this is funny. So I held on to that. But actually, the revision process was very smooth. The thing, I was looking at that question again, the thing that I fought the most for, like if I gave pushback, it was actually on who my illustrator was, because this is an illustrated series. Out of like 150 pages, there's over 75 illustrations, so it's very heavily illustrated. And I'm just gonna like hold up her name. I'm in love with Sophie Escabase's work. She's like the best illustrator on the scene, I think. And when it came time to kind of figure out who our illustrator was going to be, I was like, it has to be Sophie. So but probably that's where I gave the most push on anything.
Nice. Okay, so we only have time probably for one more question before we do readings. So I'm going to put a couple questions together. What do you love writing about middle grade? And what do you think makes middle grade special or different? What can you do in middle grade that you can't really do in other age genres? I'll start with Kit and then Kerelyn and Arianne, just because that's how you're appearing on my screen.
Okay, sounds good. I've always known that I wanted to write middle grade, even though writing the Derby Daredevils as a chapter book was really fun. I think what's really, really special about middle grade is it's a huge transformation in one's life when they're that age. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that I think it's like the most magical, wonderful time for kids. I know it wasn't for me, but the reason why I've always known that I wanted to write for middle grade was because that's where I retreated. And that's where I found a lot of solace and help when I was confused, and, you know, a lot of personalities and friends in characters. And basically, I think that that's really when my relationship with books was got really strong, was when I was in those middle school years. And there is something about being in the age where we're changing so much between, like, you know, childhood and adulthood, that almost seems like all the possibilities are open. So, you know, at that age, it did seem really possible that, like, yeah, why not? An owl could bring me a letter and I could go off to Hogwarts, because everything's changing so much anyway, you know. Maybe I'm magical, or maybe I'm, like, you know, maybe I have this secret. There's this secret in my family I'm going to find, or maybe I'm going to surprise myself with what I'm capable of. I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful time of possibility for kids. So that's why I love writing for middle grade.
I love that. Thank you. Kerelyn, how about you?
So I talked about it a little bit, but like similar to Kit, it was the time where I was most passionate and excited about reading, and like all I wanted to do was read, and like all my friends and I talked about were the books we were reading, and like, you know, the Alana series and like the Golden Compass, and we just were like totally falling into those worlds. So to me, it's like a place where you can bring like a lot of joy and humor, and it's a really rich developmental stage, as you were saying, Kit, too, you know, where you're really starting to form your identity apart from your parents. You're starting to kind of see what the world is like and grapple with those issues and the things that are facing you. So it's just a exciting group to write for, I think. I don't know, I think challenging is more just about like keeping it at the right level, which, like, I totally agree with Kit that you don't ever want to like talk down, but just to keep it at things that are interesting to them at that time period. So you're not kind of, I think as adults, we tend to make things more muddled than they need to be. And then kids, you know, help us to get back closer to the things that actually matter and be more real and upfront about things.
I like that. Thank you. Arianne, how about you?
So I actually started writing My Life as a Potato as a young adult book. Ben was a 9th grader, and I guess something about my voice was just automatically more middle grade. I think it's just maybe the type of writer I am. I had a lot of feedback that I should turn it into a middle grade instead. And I think that the themes about My Life as a Potato were really, they jived well with the middle grade genre, because it's a lot about friendship, some like first crushes and like awkwardness around girls, and I don't know, all this stuff that I really liked to write and I thought was young adult was actually more middle grade. And I was more familiar with the young adult genre than the middle grade genre, so I had to read a lot of middle grade to kind of put myself in that headspace of what a middle grade book is supposed to sound like. And the hardest part about writing middle grade for me, I don't know, I don't really find it, I find it easier to write middle grade than young adult, so I don't have a huge answer to that one.
That's fine.
Sorry.
Okay, now each of the authors are going to give us a short reading from their book. We have a lot of people who want to see illustrations. If you have illustrations in your book, be sure to show us. So I don't know what order we decided to do this in. Arianne, can we just start with you?
Sure, yeah. I am going to read a little part in the middle of the book, because I have my first chapter, you know, it's on the Amazon listing, it's on my website. I feel like a lot of people have read the first chapter, so it might have a little bit of spoilers in here, but I think that's fine. In this scene, Ben had a disastrous first game as the potato mascot, and this is the second game, and he's prepared a lot, and he's watched a lot of YouTube videos, and he's like ready to go. So it's a little bit about him trying his best. I will probably just read, I think, about 2.5 pages. By halftime, we're 6 points ahead. Time to check another item off my mascotting ideas list. Start the wave. While the cheerleaders do their routine, I run to one end of the bleachers, crouch to the floor, and pop up with my hands above my head. The fans catch on, rising in their seats one after another as the waves ripple down the stands. I run across the bottom of the bleachers, following the wave, and started up again on the other side. As I turn to run back to my starting point, I notice Ellie and Hunter in the top left corner. I tip my head back to get a better look. Ellie is wearing a nice maroon-colored shirt that I've never seen her wear before. These are his best friends. Beside her, Hunter hops on the bench, totally out of sync with the wave. They must have come in late, because I definitely would have face-fived them if I'd seen them walk in. Anyway, all these thoughts pass through my head as I'm running back for the wave, and before I know it, I trip over my own feet and I'm diving toward the floor. Leaning my head back while we're running in a potato helmet was not my brightest idea. I flop to the court and find myself bowling ball rolling toward the cheerleaders. They're stacked on top of each other like a human deck of cards. I steamroll into the girl at the corner and her elbows buckle, causing the whole pyramid to collapse. Down they come like bowling pins. Bowling pins that can squeal anyway. Jayla tumbles on top of me. Jayla is his crush from the second row. It might even be romantic if I weren't in a potato suit. Ah, stupid potato, she yells. I'm speechless. There's a little picture of him rolling into it.
Oh, cute.
Paris, the cherry on top of the cheerleader sundae, takes the hardest hit. You klutz, she cries out, rubbing her backside. The crowd, meanwhile, is having a field day, hooting and hollering with gigantic grins on their faces. Some hold out their phones to record the aftermath of the spill. You'd think everyone would hate me for ruining the cheer pyramid, but apparently no one can resist a good mascot fail. I'll just stop there for the sake of time.
Thank you. I love that, Arianne. What's funny is my mom was a cheerleader, and she actually had her 2 front teeth knocked out in a problem like that.
A pyramid spill, yeah.
Pyramid spill, they're dangerous.
They are. Luckily, no one gets injured in the book.
Yeah, good. Carolyn, how about you go next?
Okay. Okay, so in this scene, MULROX has just been pushed into the woods mercurial, which is a place that no ogre ever wants to go because it's incredibly dangerous. So he's just fallen, gotten up, looked around, he thinks he's okay, and then this happens. Ow! A high voice squealed. MULROX swiveled, looking for his would-be attacker. Get off! The voice said again. Get off! Get off! But MULROX didn't see anyone. It was just him in the trees. You great pile of stink rot! The voice was panting now. Move your foot! Though MULROX couldn't find the speaker, he obeyed, taking 2 careful steps to the side. In answer, he heard a deep exhalation and then a gasp. No! No! Not my tail! You! Sharp pain rushed through his legs. Hey! Below him was an animal, 6 inches tall, shrouded in a hooded cloak. It was balanced on its hind legs and slashing away at MULROX's shins with its front paws. A cold sweat trickled down MULROX's back. The creature was unmistakable. They were in a fairy ring of ancient redwoods that marked its home. It was as the stories had said. He would surely be cursed now. This is an outrage, the little creature continued. You smashed all the way here, no consideration of how things are done, knocking everything over, and then breaking someone's tail. The animal let out a miserable moan. Its front paws trembled and it fell over flat on its side. Ah, it hurts, it said. Its striped head popped out of the hooded cloak, and the creature glared at MULROX, giving him a clear view of the animal's enormous cheeks, wriggling nose, and a pair of inch-long yellowish teeth. 2 tiny fuzzy ears poked up through little holes cut in the hood's top. MULROX had rolled down the hill right onto a squirrel monk. He was a goner. Never in my entire life, of all the indignities, I, Lady Rodinia Marmody VIII, a squirrel monk, the highest order of rodent. Are you gonna curse me? If so, could we please just get this over with? It's been a rough day and... Curse you? Listen, you great oaf, I'm not gonna curse you. A message is all. Some might even consider it a blessing. I was going to come find you, but I suppose you took care of that. Me? Are you sure? There's a lot of ogres up that hill. MULROX pointed towards the river of broken branches and uprooted bushes. This message is for you. I only deal with the real wackos like yourself. Something's wrong with you, so much so that the universe knows it. So it is a curse? Fine, it's a curse. Life's a curse. I'm cursed to be here and not asleep in my burrow because my wondrous, perfect, enchanting golden walnut is gone. So let's get on with this. Now, if you don't mind. The squirrel monk pulled the hood lower over her face. She waved her little claws. MULROX, the squirrel monk said in a voice much slower and deeper than before. Tonight, you will. No, thank you, MULROX shouted. And before he knew what he was doing, he had his hands wrapped around the creature's mouth. That's enough. I'm fine as I am. No messages needed. Pain needled through his hands, and then he dropped the animal. 2 bite marks stood out on his red skin, welling with blood. No more touching, Rodinia said. MULROX nodded. The creature scampered a few feet away and then sat on her haunches, regarding him. You really don't want to be transformed from your current wretched state? She asked. I foresee great things for you. No, I'm fine, MULROX said, his hope rising. He was sure this was the right answer. It was asking for wishes, wanting the wrong thing that got you in trouble. From an outside perspective, you desperately need it. I'll manage. Virginia shook her head. Ogres, your lack of perspective is incredible. She clapped her paws together. Well, that's too bad. Events are in motion, big forces, dragon poked, that sort of thing. Can't be helped. You'll just have to do your best. MULROX's lips pressed into a thin line. Why did you ask then? Curiosity. Well, I thought you might feel better if you thought you chose what happens next. But I didn't choose. No one ever does. If we left it up to you, no one would ever change. She smoothed back the fur around her face in several quick movements, then she leaned in towards MULROX. Here's the deal, kid. We squirrel monks are keepers of the golden walnuts. Mine disappear, so things are about to get weird. It'll be rough for you. I can see that.
Thank you,
So
Carolyn.
cute.
That was super cute. I think I could
Love
speak for
that.
everyone in saying, I don't even want to read it. I just want you to read it to me. Okay,
You
Kit,
should
you're
do an
next.
audiobook, seriously.
I know, that was so fun.
You really should. I really regret being last. I am in the same way. I think that the beginning of my book has been out on probably Amazon or articles or whatever. So I'm going to go from the middle as well. Just a little bit of context. So like I said, the main character of this book is KENZIE, and she's trying to form a team with her best friend Shelly. And in this scene, KENZIE and Shelly have managed to gather enough people for their team. However, they quickly discover that they are the only two who have actually really roller skated before. So they're trying to get in, but time is like catching up to them. They don't have a lot of time to look for other people or to train more. So they're trying to get into a quick training practice before the big tryouts for the Derby League. And we get to see how these kids kind of just interact together on the track for the first time. So KENZIE dumped the padding next to a bench and sat down to change into her skates. Jules flew out of the door a minute later, followed by Tomoko. Camila emerged last. She was carrying her skates like they might bite her. Shelly turned to KENZIE, but KENZIE pretended to be busy tying her own skates. Okay, guys, KENZIE said, make sure your laces are good and tight. Jules stretched her laces taut as she yanked them over and under each loop. They're so tight they might break my foot, she said proudly. Well, don't cut off circulation, Shelley said. The point is to not let them get loose. Oh, they won't, Jules assured her. Tomoko wrapped her laces around her ankle and knotted them in front. Whoa, Shelley said. It took me months before I figured out how to tie them like that. Tomoko blushed. I was watching you guys, she said. Kenzie buckled her helmet and stood up. She clapped her hands the way Miss Moss had done at rehearsal. Fasten your elbow pads and hustle to the court. Places! These are really heavy, Camilla said. She lifted a foot, then let the skate clack onto the ground. You'll get used to it, Kenzie said. Your feet will slide more than walk anyway. Camilla frowned and tied her laces into a neat bow. No, you have to tie them a lot tighter than that, Shelley said, or the skates will fly off your feet. They will? Camilla asked. She looked down at her skates in horror. Leave her alone, Kenzie said. You're scaring her. Shelley threw her hands up. I'm trying to help. Tomoko pushed off from the bench. Whoa, she said. She wobbled her arms a moment, then held them out like she was walking on a tightrope. She kicked one of her legs and propelled herself forward. That's great, Shelley said. Make sure your legs go out to the side, not right behind you. Okay, Tomoko said. She steadied herself and bent her knees, then rolled one skate out, then the other. Kenzie was impressed that Tomoko hadn't fallen right off the bat. Maybe they really would have a superstar team after all. Right before I turn the page, this is just a little Sophie illustration of them tying their skates. Hi-ya! Jules yelled. She jumped up on her skates, then collapsed in a jumbled heap. There's Jules right there. Before anyone could help her up, Jules pushed herself back up to standing. She reached out toward Tomoko and lunged again. Hi-ya! Kenzie watched as Jules went down like a stick building that had been blown over by the big bad wolf. Kenzie's cheeks flushed. I can't fall like that, Camilla said. I bruise easily. That's okay, Shelley said. Bruises are really normal here. Camilla shot a bewildered look at Kenzie. She kept a death grip on the bench as she stood up. Try letting go, Shelley said. Camilla froze. Her hand was firmly wrapped around the back of the bench. She whimpered and sat back down. I can't, she cried. Kenzie gave a long and low sigh. Well, that's just great, Shelley said, rolling her eyes. We'll knock 'em dead tomorrow. And this might be my favorite illustration in the, well, one of my favorite illustrations in the book, where we're seeing the dynamics. And basically what has happened is that Kenzie, our protagonist, has told Camilla that roller derby was just like a pretend play. And so we're seeing that kind of fib catch back up to her. So.
Oh, thank you guys. I loved those readings. I think everyone is super excited to read your books. We had a question if there was any way to get signed copies of your books. So really fast, you guys can answer that. And then we have a big fun giveaway. So everyone hang tight to see if you're a winner. Okay, Kit.
Okay, so there might be a way to get a current signed book. As you guys know, it's really hard because a lot of the indie bookstores had to close their doors. I did just sign 100 copies at Barnes & Noble, specific location in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I'm going to look into that and see if they're still sending those signed copies out. However, because it's like, I was going to announce this later, but I want to announce it to the launch. One thing I have done to try to help with things like signed copies, since so many of the signed copies can't go anywhere, is that anyone who does order, I'm going to have an email address that I use called the Derby Daredevils at gmail.com. And I've just put in another order for another like 100 or so signed, book plates that I can sign and inscribe personal messages on. And was for pre-orders, but now it's just for anybody who wants a book plate in these times. All you have to do is email the Derby Daredevils at gmail.com. Doesn't matter where you get your book, and I can send you a signed book plate.
Great, and we'll make sure to put that in the post-party email. Arianne, how about you?
Yeah, kind of the same deal. So if you order from Red Rock Books in Ridgecrest, they can mail you a signed copy, and that information should be on my website. If you are in Arizona, Changing Hands Bookstore has some signed book plates. And the same deal as Kit, I have some gifts that I'm giving out to people who email me after they read the book. So I have a signed book plate, I have some potato bookmarks that look like potatoes, and I have like a little potato sticker. So just fun things that, especially if you have a kid who emails me, I'll send them a fun little letter.
Awesome. And Carolyn?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really have a way to give anybody signed books at the moment. The bookstore I was going to work with doesn't have an online storefront, and they had to close because we're in Seattle at the heart of everything. But maybe I will look into something like what Kit is doing and see if I can get some nameplates that I can sign and ship out to people. And, you know, once things calm down, I would be happy to sign anyone's book when I see you again.
Great. Awesome. Now we have some giveaways. We're going to announce the winners. If you are here, put into the chat box here really fast, because if you're not here, we're going to give it away to someone else. Wait, don't type here yet. No, your name is, if your name is called. So I think each of you are announcing your winners, correct? Okay, Carolyn, you can go first.
Okay, so my winner is Marianne Lewis.
Marianne, are you here? Type here if you are. Again, if you are.
She's here. Wait, no, that's someone else.
That's a lot of other people. Marianne Lewis, are you here?
She was unable to log on.
Oh, darn it.
Should we go to the backup, or should we just send it to her anyway?
It looks like it's someone's mom. Do we want to send it to that person's mom who is here?
So that's my grandmother. I mean, I know she would love it, so I can reach out with contact information.
Okay. Okay. And that's your book, right? That's the prize?
Yes, the prize is my book, and then a small little toad emblem, which is, you know, MULROX's pet, Geraldine.
Oh, fun. Okay. Kit, who's your winner?
Looks like my winner is Jess Redman. Are you here, Jess?
Yes, are you here?
There she
Yay,
is.
she's here.
Okay, so Jess is getting a signed hardcover of the Derby Daredevils, and then also I was trying to find like a fun, like little roller skate themed thing to send with it. So I found a DIY, like make your own roller skate paper craft. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, because it says it takes like 3 hours to make. So.
Okay, Arianne, how about you?
I don't know how to pronounce this last name, but Christy McGill?
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 That's how I always say it. Christy, are you here? I saw her get on earlier, but she might have had to get off.
I wonder if she got kicked off during the fiasco. Should I reach out to her on Twitter since she was here?
Yeah,
previously?
she was here,
okay.
so just
I'll reach
to
out.
her.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Awesome.
And we also have a second giveaway, which is really exciting, but you go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, that's all I was going to say. We have a second giveaway! Woohoo! More prizes! So I'll let each of them talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to say, I mean, it doesn't matter since she's not here, I guess, but Christy's also winning a shirt that my good friend made, Diana DeBolt Johnson. It's like a shirt from the book, a game day shirt.
So fun!
Yeah.
We have a second prize. You get to see Anne.
Woo!
Baby. Okay.
So cute.
Now, what is the second giveaway, Kit?
So what we're doing is, as you guys might have seen on the reminder email from yesterday, and then another email, a post-party email is going to go out after this with the links again. But all three of us have a subscriber list. And so what we're going to do is we've all agreed that each of us, so there's going to be another 3 winners, will be hi, Anne. We'll be giving away a $20 gift card to the bookstore, hopefully independent bookstore, of the winner's choice. So the winner will get to choose where they get the credit to, and they can get any of our books. They can get any book they want, really. And all you have to do to enter is to become a subscriber on our list. Even if you are already a subscriber, you're already entered. And then if you subscribe these now after this, you'll be entered, and we will be drawing the winner next Friday, April 3rd. Did I miss anything?
I think
I
got
that's
it. So everyone, keep an eye on your inboxes for a post-party email. We will have info about how to get signed books, and then we will have the links to everyone's newsletter so you can enter in that for money for books. Say yay! So I just want to thank everyone for coming out. It was super fun to party in our own houses, and just thanks for supporting your debut authors and your indie bookstores, especially right now. We all need each other to get through this, and so thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you, MG at Heart. Subscribe to their newsletter because their book club is amazing.
Yeah, definitely do that. Thank you so much, Amanda. It really was an honor to be able to read with all of you guys and get to do this event. Really helped to turn kind of a terrible situation just a little bit better. So thank you, and thanks for being on top of everything. I feel so honored.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, guys. It's so hard to just get off of these things, but everyone in the chat box is saying thank you, and they love it, and I think we love all of you. So I'm sorry to cut this short, but Anne is trying to eat my computer, so that's gonna be it. Bye, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Bye. If I can figure out how to do it, hold on. How do I stop?
Leave meeting.
Nope. Hold on. I'm gonna figure out how to turn this off. Okay, maybe someone needs to tell me how to end the call. I see it. End meeting. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh.